playing with confidence. Serves it inside 50.
Inside 50, good hands.
Drilling it into centre half forward. That was end-to-end football at its best.
Back-to-back goals either side of quarter time.
They've done it, the Bulldogs!
I'd fight somebody for you. There ain't no wall I would run through. In your corner when they're ringing the bell. Come hell or high water. I'd fight somebody for you.
G'day WAFL fans, welcome one and all to another edition of Around the WAFL as we build up to another exciting weekend of WAFL and WAFLW football. A very exciting one at that as well, with round 17 of the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season. The first of the full contingent of games in the final month of the home and away season before we have finals football, the best time of year. And also the last round of the APCO WAFLW Premiership, which sees 3 teams battling it out for 2 final spots. Only one of them will be very, very unlucky to miss out, and we'll look at that battle in just a little bit here on Around the WAFL. It's all thanks to our fine folks at Grant's Car Stereo Morley, Sullivan Logistics, celebrating over 30 years of transportation in Western Australia, Front Row Screen Sport, Matt Williamson and Ryan Ramage doing a wonderful job putting out great coverage of WAFL footy, and of course District Promotions down at East Vic Park. They're all our wonderful partners of Around the WAFL in season 2026, so it's great to have them on board once again. And you're checking us out on Facebook and on Instagram if you want all your latest social content on Around the WAFL. And also you're checking out our latest episode on YouTube and where you get your podcast. Paul Persic with you, riding solo today, but it is great to have your company nonetheless as we look ahead to some exciting WAFL action this week. Also joining us later on in the show is South Fremantle's vice-captain in the WAFLW, Charlie Vandenburg, who of course is gearing up along with her side for the do-or-die clash with reigning premiers Claremont on Sunday, and that is going to be a big day in itself. She'll talk to us about the season so far, and she'll be looking forward to what is going to be an incredible game. She hasn't played since round 13, but she's very keen to be back in the side for Sunday's clash with the reigning premiers, where it's a must-win for South Fremantle, or their fate won't entirely be in their own hands. So a lot can happen in the next couple of days in the lead up to Sunday. And we'll also have the debut of our new recurring segment here on Around the WAFL, taking you back in time to some memorable moments and matches in the WAFL in years gone by. The first one, as we showed you on our socials, going back to 1983. And I'll give you a clue as to regards our flashback, Ron Alexander. And that's your clue for today's Around the WAFL flashback, first in a recurring series for the remainder of 2026 and well into 2027 as well, when we get underway once again. Also, we'll have a preview of the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season and also what is in store for September. So make sure you keep your eyes and ears peeled for that later on in the show. But we're going to get to some news, 2 big news items ruling the last couple of days in the WAFL, and one's a heartbreaker as far as Claremont are concerned, because it was confirmed earlier this week that contrary to speculation by various forms, including ours, earlier in the week, Claremont key forward Jaden Hunter has been ruled out for the remainder of the season with what is turning out to be an ACL injury. Hunter damaged his right knee during a passage of play 8 minutes into the second term and had to be assisted from the ground, although he did run to the bench on his own accord later on. But scans on his knee have revealed that he has damaged his anterior cruciate ligament, and he'll spend 12 months on the sidelines. So that is a major blow for Jaden Hunter, another one for him, and what has been a very disjointed last couple of seasons, because over the last 4 years in particular, he's gone 2 knee reconstructions to his left knee, a surgery to cure stress fractures in his back, torn ligaments in his left elbow, and a fractured finger, as well as 2 bouts of concussion just last year, with a second concussion forcing him to miss Claremont's win in the semi-final last year against Perth and the narrow loss in the preliminary final last year. So very unfortunate. Another heartbreaker for Jaden Hunter, who of course kicked 40 goals in 14 games last year. He's kicked 34 this year, and he's of course having to miss the rest of the season. And of course he kicked 7-1 against the Eagles, 4 goals against West Perth, and another 4 against East Fremantle in 3 matches, a stretch of 15 goals in 3 games. So he was back into some fine form. But unfortunately, he has been cut down. Speaking of the Claremont Football Club, other news from that game that was confirmed by the club earlier this week, Alex Pearce. Now, he's not missed a match so far this season off the half-back flank. He spent a few hours in hospital on Saturday night after receiving a knee in the back in a marking duel with Scotty Jones into the third quarter on Saturday in their win over East Perth. There's no sign of any serious damage to his ribs or his kidneys. He's hopeful of being fit to play on Saturday, but there remains a 50-50 prospect. A lot of injuries have hampered the Tigers this season. Ronan O'Connor, Samson Jennings-Hopkins, Austin Vanderstryfe, Max Menier and Callan England, who suffered a leg injury a couple of weeks ago, all forced to sit on the sidelines for a couple of matches. So, not the best time for Claremont to have injuries to key players, but they are sitting in second and take on West Perth on Saturday, so that is massive. Also reports, and this is as far as the entire league is concerned, the grand final, which was initially mooted to be a Saturday night, will revert back to a Sunday afternoon as a result of the Fremantle Dockers dominating the AFL competition this season and the likelihood of them hosting 2 finals during the final series in September. WA Footballer, led by newly appointed CEO Brad Wirra, who began his stint just a few weeks ago, have reportedly confirmed that the grand final will revert to a Sunday afternoon, that being the men's grand final, on the 20th of September at Optus Stadium. So no night grand final this year, despite it being initially mooted, but with the Dockers in fine form, and also with Adelaide being in contention for the top 4. You've also got to look at broadcast schedules and timing of the respective matches. So the Dockers likely to possibly host a preliminary final should they get the job done in the first week, knowing that they will finish on top of the ladder regardless of what happens in Friday night's game against the Western Bulldogs. The WAFL will revert to a Sunday afternoon grand final on September the 20th at Optus Stadium, a time still yet to be confirmed. Last year it was 3:20. It could remain the same for the decider in 2026. But we'll have more information as it becomes available. What we do know as far as grand finals are concerned, the road to the women's grand final, the WAFLW grand final, is getting closer. We're less than a month away from Fremantle Oval hosting the decider on August 23. And we know next week the first spot in the grand final will be confirmed. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. So some big news in the WAFL over the last few days. So be on the lookout for all of those when more information becomes available. Let's get on with our round preview. We're heading into round 17 of the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season as the final fight for the 5 is well and truly on in earnest. Yes, round 17 spread over 2 days in the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season. 4 games on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. And that Sunday game we'll talk about later is going to be huge for both sides. But we'll start off at Steel Blue Oval on Saturday. Swan Districts taking on Peel Thunder. The Premiership favourites at this stage. They're looking for 11 wins in a row, and they're looking to really enhance themselves as the foot of the competition in 2026. 110 on Channel 7 and on 7+. This is going to be a real barnstormer. Swan Districts have had the knack to catch sides by surprise at home. They did so against East Perth a couple of weeks ago in that very exciting win led by the likes of Caleb Ernst and Lee Coleman, who kicked a big bag in that match-winning performance, and Jesse Turner and a couple of others, Clint Hinchcliffe in midfield. But Peel Thunder, they just keep on winning, don't they? They've got amazing depth through their Dockers listed players. They go in with an average of 13 to 15 players in the Fremantle side this season, and the way they've been able to towel up Swan Districts in recent meetings has been absolutely magnificent. Testament to their class. They've won 4 out of their last 5 against Swan Districts. The only exception being that shock loss in the qualifying final in 2024, where Swan Districts won by 17 points, but Peel got it done 2 weeks later in the preliminary final. Now, Swan Districts do have a concern. Jesse Turner left the ground 2 weeks ago with their loss to South Fremantle with a hamstring injury, and it's a bit unknown whether he will be in the side. If he's not in the side, that is going to really take a lot of pace out of Swan's midfield, because through the likes of Turner, Hinchcliffe, and also Josh Sepro, who's been getting a lot of football in that inside midfielder role, they really like to play that fast-paced game. They work it through the corridor, get direct penetration inside that forward 50. And without Jesse Turner, Swan District's chances could pretty much dip as far as they're concerned, because when you're trying to take on the likes of Peel Thunder, who heavily rely on that fast-flowing, high-scoring brand of football, it's going to be very tough for Swan Districts to try and curtail Peel Thunder's impact on the game. We saw a couple of weeks ago against Claremont, where Claremont were able to put a lot of contested pressure on Peel Thunder's hard-running mids. Subiaco did the same thing, especially with a tag from Marlon Corbett in particular on Jeremy Sharp, who was held to just 13 disposals in that game. But what remains to be seen is how Swan Districts can impact Peel Thunder's influence. And if I was Andrew Prune, the first thing you've got to do is really put that tag on Jeremy Sharp. If Jeremy Sharp has a tag put on him, that could be huge. But if you get one, you've got to get the others as well, especially when you have such high ball winners in the form of Sean Darcy in the ruck. He is going to stay at Peel Thunder this weekend, with Mason Cox remaining in the Dockers side for the game against the Bulldogs. Aidan Riddle, he can follow up with some good work around the midfield. You've also got a couple of others that are looking to get back in the side. Scotty Tuia, who was out with illness for a couple of games, but now he is able to finally make his presence known in that Peel Thunder lineup, and certainly is much needed with Swan Districts looking to try and maintain their good run of form recently at home. But Peel Thunder, they've got the firepower as well up forward. You talk about not just Riddle, you've also got Charlie Nichols in there. Jaron Carr is another one of those midfielders who can drift up forward and kick some goals. And Peel Thunder, just all round as a team, have the better balance. While Swan Districts, they're going to have to reorganise their midfield a little bit, with Jesse Turner likely out of the side. But if he's selected in this game, well, it's a testament to Jesse Turner's overall fitness, because he is a very fit player, but also it's the belief in himself that really wants this Swan District side to do well, and he really wants them to do well. But they're going to have a really big test against Peel Thunder's all-round balance and depth, and the way they use the football from midfield into attack. Their kick-outs from the back line have been very good, and whenever you turn the ball over in your back half against Peel Thunder, often you're made to pay the price through the likes of Corey Tregenza, who can punish you inside that forward 50. My pick's Peel Thunder, because even with Swan District's form at home, Peel Thunder just look unbeatable. They're looking for 11 wins in a row. They're the best form side in the competition for a reason, and even though they can be challenged at times, they rise to it. And it's a testament to Adam Reid and his ability to get the best out of the players, especially the younger players in the Dockers list who's finding their feet. Hugh Davies, he might have a bit of a burst in confidence after having a contract extension at Fremantle until the end of 2029. So that might spark a little extra fire, to continue his good week. And his work down the back line has been very exceptional. He's averaging around about 10 marks per game this season. And when Swans try to rush the ball into their forward 50, they've got to be wary of the influence of Hugh Davies. He's got a very safe pair of hands as far as the Peel Thunder backline is concerned, the barometer of that back six. So Peel Thunder and Swan Districts, 110 at Steel Blue Oval, should be a great game. Next up, Revo Fitness Stadium is the place, and the teams, Claremont and West Perth. This is from 2:30pm on 7plus on Saturday. The first time these two sides met, Claremont absolutely thrashed West Perth at a tune of 74 points down at HIF Health Insurance Oval. But West Perth have looked like a different side in the last couple of weeks. They've been able to play with great freedom in their game. Paul Sanzoni has said, you got nothing to lose, guys. Play with a bit more freedom, play with a little more running and purpose, and that's exactly what they have done. They unearthed a new tall weapon inside that forward 50, Harvey Sporton guy, who kicked a couple of goals, and maybe he could provide that supporting role for Tyler Keitel. Claremont's forward line, of course, is having to be reorganised by Ash Prescott because of Jaden Hunter's season-ending ACL injury, but Claremont still have some good options. Both a good mix of small forwards and tall forwards that can really make the Claremont forward line very flexible. When you think about it, that you've got Gowdy, who can play a bit up forward, Taylor DeLacy, who's mostly situated up forward, but he can move up the ground, can play on a bit of a wing. I saw him play on a wing on Saturday against East Perth, and that move worked wonders. He got a lot of the football. But what can really be a key for Claremont is the way they can get the ball out of the centre. And with West Perth, have got a lot of experience in that midfield as well, but they've got a lot of young kids in that side that are still maturing and still building up their game. It will be a tough task for West Perth because, they've been able to perform well in patches, but not consistent enough. Claremont are the model of consistency at the moment. They've gone a bit off the boil in recent weeks, but when they won against East Perth, it was the Claremont that a lot of people have wanted to see for 6 weeks. Their hunger around the contest, their desperation, the work rate of the likes of Gowdy, DeLacy, the old workhorse Bailey Rogers, who did a marvellous job in shutting out East Perth's exposed midfield. And why I say exposed, they lack the experience that are currently sidelined through injury. And for Claremont, playing at home can be a bit hard for any opposition. They'll really have that luxury to their advantage of playing at Revo Fitness Stadium. In fact, they have not lost to West Perth at Revo Fitness Stadium in 3 years. Yes, 3 years when they were beaten soundly by West Perth thanks to a big second half. So, they've had the wood over West Perth at Revo Fitness Stadium in recent years. West Perth, when you're looking at their players that they have been developed, Sporting Guy, talked about him, a couple of young backs that are really going to have their work cut out against the Claremont forward line. They are really going to have a long afternoon. And why I say that, because when West Perth try and get the ball out of the back line, they've often looked lost. And why I say they've looked lost, they haven't been able to kick to their targets a lot. Whenever they're rushing the ball out of the back line, an opposition player comes in and evens out the contest. And they just really need to kick to targets. They need to kick to more loose men going from defence into attack. And they just need to be a little bit more organised when going from defence into attack. Claremont, they look a more organised side. And they've got more class. Even without Jaden Hunter, their forward line's still going to fire. There's still a very potent unit inside that forward 50 through the likes of Gowdy, Hunter, Gowdy and DeLacy, I should say. Alec Waterman, he's that small forward who can kick some good goals. Jennings Hopkins elevated into the league side. He can kick some goals as well. The back line can also have another small option by the name of Clancy Dennis, who's only played a few games, but he's got good marking prowess and can really shut out the likes of Keitel and not out of the game. And even Sprigg, who kicked 3 goals in the loss to the Eagles, could find himself a marked man in the forward 50. And that's why I have gone with Claremont to win this game. They've just got more weapons in that forward line. West Perth are still lacking, and Claremont will obviously be looking for another big win at home and to keep a stranglehold of second place on the ladder. Let's go now to the big one at Sullivan Logistics Stadium, and isn't this one a beauty? At 2:30 on Saturday on 7+, Subiaco taking on Perth. Both sides have plenty on offer should they taste the 4 points on Saturday. Subiaco, they're in 5th place on percentage. They want to go clear of East Perth and have a bit of a blanket on themselves for 5th place. Perth, they've also got something to play for, and that is to keep the double chance, because with South Fremantle and Claremont equal on 36 points along with Perth, then every win is going to be so crucial in the final 4 rounds of the season. Perth, they got back on track in the last couple of weeks with some good wins, including a couple of good wins a couple of weeks ago. One of them against East Fremantle down at Mineral Resources Park in a dramatic contest. And the way they showed their character against the physical pressure of East Fremantle really was marvellous. And expect Subiaco to come into this contest with 2 key forwards rather than just the one. Ryan Borchett returned 2 weeks ago and he kicked 8 goals in the 2 games that he has played. It's likely that Ben Sokol will return for Subiaco. He's been battling a hamstring injury and is looking likely to come back for that game against Perth. And if he does come back, that's going to give Subiaco's forward line a huge boost. He's got plenty of experience in that forward line and they could use him to accompany Ryan Borchett. But when you got those forwards as a key option, you've got to contend with Perth's very mobile backline. Of course, you're talking about the likes of Scoble, Taylor, Charlie Dean, who was sensational in their win over East Fremantle. If you get the ball inside 50, Subiaco have really got to play that chip and run. Chip to those loose men in the 50, offer leads, and really get away from the likes of Dean and Taylor. So that'll be one key for Subiaco to try and sneak home against the Demons. And the Demons, they've largely struggled at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. They've only won 1 out of their last 11 games at the venue. And of course, the last time they were there a couple of weeks ago against an injury-depleted East Perth, they got thrashed by 51 points. And Perth can often at times struggle on the small wings at Sullivan Logistics Stadium, and they can't afford to do so in this game because they're up against a Subiaco side who have got a good blueprint for success. They're hungry for those wins. They've lost 9 of their games this season by 10 points or less, so Subiaco would not want another close loss. But Perth, I would say that they'd be favourites on form, but when you're looking at Subiaco's performances in recent weeks, they only lost to Claremont at home by 3 points. They only lost to Peel Thunder away by 8 points. So they can challenge those other sides in the top 5. And, of course, they only lost to South Fremantle a few weeks ago by a point at Fremantle Oval. So they're getting there. They're getting there and they're getting better. Corbett being, a half-back midfielder playing that two-way role has been a great move by Jared Schofield. And you also got some good midfielders in the Hickmott boys. McGowan, who can amass a lot of possessions. Greg Clark, he's a tackling machine. He can shut out any side's run and carry solo with some great tackling and keeps the ball as contested as possible. Perth would want to erase that. And they want to play as open as possible. They want to play fast, free-flowing, and have the say as far as their pace is concerned, because their midfielders got some very good pace. When you're talking about the likes of Byrne, Constable, and Brendan Parford, who's having another wonderful season. But the Demons, they're really going to have to be wary of a fired-up Subiaco, and that's why I'm going with the Demons. Only just if they are wary enough of the Lions brand of football, cagey, very stingy, and they're not prepared to give an inch. Well, Perth can't be prepared to give an inch either, because they're playing for a possible spot in the top 3 at the end of the season, and they want to keep their double chance hopes alive. So I'm picking Perth only on form, but they need to be wary of the brand that Subiaco play. It should be an exciting game of football on Saturday at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Subi and Perth, an early final perhaps. Only time will tell. And then the last game to be played on Saturday in round 17, it is East Fremantle taking on East Perth at the Good Grocer Park. This one's live on 7+, and this too is shaping up to be a real cracker. And why I say that, because East Fremantle, even though they're in 9th place, they're only 2 wins out of the 5, and they haven't got any buys coming up, and a couple of teams above them have got some buys. So, there's still a little hope, but it is fading. And East Fremantle would want to take on the likes of East Perth, who are still going to be without a lot of experience. But having said that, East Perth will really want to get back at East Fremantle, because East Fremantle, if you remember, knocked off the Royals down at Sullivan Logistics Stadium in a day-night match back in round 3 by 13 points. And they've had the wood over the Royals in their last few meetings. If you remember, round 19 last year, East Fremantle got the job done over East Perth by 15 points. And they've been able to play some good close footy in the last 3 encounters. In fact, East Perth have won the last 3, and East Perth have not beaten East Fremantle since the big wet at Leederville in round 20 of 2024, when Harrison McCready kicked that winning goal from outside the 50. East Perth are going to go into this game possibly with a boost, because Stan Wright, he's been tipped to return from a calf injury. He sustained that calf injury a few weeks ago, and they're certainly going to rely on his experience down back, because that is going to be the big key, how East Perth manage on their kicking from half back, because their kicking from the back half was atrocious against Claremont. They often turned the ball over. They rushed their disposal. They weren't getting first to the football out of that defensive 50 as a result of their atrocious kick-ins from full back, and they're really going to have to work on that. But Stan Wright is one of those that can handle that matter, because he's got a bevy of experience. He's one of the more experienced defenders in the competition. And his work rate down that back line and his desperation really has to be under the microscope in a good way. They're really going to have to rely on him against East Fremantle. But East Fremantle could pull a few tricks out of the hat, if you know what I mean, because Billy Monahan has been trying and testing a lot of these young kids that are bobbing up into the East Fremantle League side. And while they've been able to get wins on the board, they're not doing it consistently. They're just fading out of games in patchy style, because they're not getting a lot out of these players. They're experimenting with John O'Marsh down the back line, which could work against an East Perth forward line that still looks very good. Stevens, Schofield, Sam Van Diemen can drift up into that forward line. All of them are small forwards, however, so the matchup could be for anyone as far as John O'Marsh is concerned, maybe on Mitch Schofield, because he's got a little bit more muscle than his other 2 counterparts in the forward line. So if you put Mitch Schofield for John O'Marsh, then that could be a big assignment for the big East Fremantle backman. And when you're looking at how the game's going to be played with all the conditions that are forecast, it is going to be some light rain in the morning, but should ease off come the afternoon. That could bode well to East Fremantle's style, because with a drying ground, they handle the football better in the dry weather. If it remains wet, then that could be a real problem. East Perth can play those wet conditions very well at times, but without the likes of Mazzando, Brayshaw, Amaduri, they're still on the sidelines, they're relying on those two prime movers to get it out of the centre, then that's going to be a real struggle. Scotty Jones, who's been cleaned up by his opponents in the last 2 weeks, could have another big battle against Luke Stranatica in the ruck, and that's really what Luke Stranatica would want. He wants a big battle with another big man, and I reckon that one-on-one matchup in the ruck could be a decisive one. And Luke Stranatic, who's had a fine season in the ruck in a team that's in 9th position at the moment. He came over from North Fremantle in a stint with the PFL there, and he's really gotten back into it almost immediately, getting around about 20 hit-outs a game, 25 hit-outs in a couple of games. He even got 30 earlier in the season. So Stranatica is really going to have his work cut out against Scotty Jones, who's determined to get back into some good form after being cleaned up by two of his opponents, none more so Ollie Eastland, in the last 2 weeks. So a vital game for this as far as the context of the season goes for East Fremantle and East Perth. And East Perth, they're not looking like the East Perth that we saw them get into 2 straight grand finals. And even with Stevens and Schofield looking to score a big bag in front of goal, you're talking about the likes of Angus Scott being back in form. He had a lot of disposals in that loss. Really was the only one that fired in that East Perth midfield rotation because they were being torn apart by ruthless Claremont pressure. I'm sticking my neck out in this one. I just have a feeling that East Fremantle could get up here because Bill Monahan, he's a very genius coach. Same could be said for Ross McQueen. But when you're trying out new things, the reward is very satisfying. And I feel that John O'Marsh could match up on Mitch Schofield, and Luke Stranatica could be in for a big day against Scott Jones. And some opponents have found it very tricky to play at Goodgrosser Park. You get out onto a bit of a lead, you have a run going, but you don't really put sides like East Fremantle away. But that's why I'm going with East Fremantle, especially with the injuries. And if Stan Wright doesn't come back, as we have tipped earlier, then East Perth could still look very vulnerable. But should be an interesting game, that one at Goodgrosser Park, the Sharks and the Royals. And then finally, Sunday. And this is a big one. West Coast and South Fremantle on 7+ at 11:10 in the morning. A bit unusual at the same time as West Coast play Richmond at the MCG. Boggles the mind that match is happening at the same time, but oh well, go figure. Big game, this one. This is a massive game for both West Coast and South Fremantle. It's a must-win for the Eagles if they're to still have hope of making the 5. They're tied with East Perth and Subiaco. And South Fremantle, should they win, well, they'll have a bit of a blanket on themselves and Subiaco and East Perth and could possibly seal the double chance at the next game. And South Fremantle, they are going to be boosted big time because they could have 2 players come back either this week or they could play next week in a big game against East Perth. We know Matty Parker and Lucas Robinson, they have had their returns held back a week due to injury. But when you're talking about the likes of Rusco and Noah Strom potentially coming back, then that is going to be huge for South Fremantle. That will really boost the South Fremantle forward line because they've struggled a little bit to kick big bags of goals consistently without those two. Rusco, we talked about him checking out before he left Europe. Noah Strom had been a bit so-so before he went to Europe as well. You've also got Jermaine Jones coming back into the side as well. So that is going to be huge to give South Fremantle's forward line the firepower that it's desperately needed for a number of weeks. While for the West Coast Eagles, this could be their biggest chance to claim their biggest scalp of the year. You know, they've had wins against Claremont, they've had wins over East Fremantle, they've had wins twice now over West Perth, and they've been able to take Swan Districts out twice in a couple of competitive games. And should they get the job done, it could be their biggest scalp of the year and their biggest hope of making the 5. They've got a lot of self-belief in themselves under Cole Horsley, who's got a great formula together in order to take on these great sides. They've had usually up to 19 listed AFL players in that side, and they've played some bloody great football. You talk about Gross and Hall, prime movers in that engine room. Cooper Duff Titler, as I said on Monday, if he's selected in that AFL side, then that's a just opportunity because he's been one of those small forwards that has fired on all cylinders. He kicked 4 goals in that win over West Perth. Down back, Josh Burke has been exceptional. You talk about a couple of the other Eagles prime movers, not just Hall and Gross. Luca Grego got over 30 possessions playing as a midfielder and worked his way into half back as well. And, just the depth that they have got to take on a South Fremantle side who are, slowly getting back into some form. They've won their last 3 games, but they know that there's still a lot of work to be done if they're going to have a shot at defending their premiership. So a very interesting game, no doubt about that. So vital game it is on paper, but the way this game could be won is that if South Fremantle can get Strom and Rusco on the board early, then that'll be a huge difference. They like to get off to a good start. West Coast, they've been a bit patchy at the start, but their last quarter form has improved drastically from last year. They've been able to kick away in the first 10 minutes. If the game is in the balance, that could benefit West Coast because they've got the extra match fitness via their AFL-listed players. But South Fremantle, they've got some good match fitness themselves as well through the likes of Florenka and Bledgenon in midfield. They're A-class. The midfield unit's still lacking the spark of a Matty Parker, who could come back in the next week for the game against East Perth. But the way they control the football, the way they put pressure on the opposing players when they've got possession will be very important. And I reckon East Fremantle would want to make it as contested and low-scoring as possible through their tackling because they're a very good tackling side. I'd put them on par with the likes of East Fremantle and Claremont as some of the best tackling sides in the competition. But the way they got to do it against the West Coast Eagles is they've got to force repeat stoppages, restrict repeat entries from inside 50, and really control it out of halfback to try and just slow the tempo down and force the Eagles to try and play that 1v1, which they don't really like very much. So that's why I'm going with South Fremantle, but by not that much. I reckon the Eagles will be a challenge. Some have said, they're not a very consistent side, but they've consistently challenged other sides in the top 5. And if they win the match, they certainly deserve to. That would have given them 4 out of their last 6 as far as wins are concerned. So the Eagles, they'll challenge. They'll be out to claim their biggest scout, but South Fremantle will get the job done in the end. That's my pick. Let us know who you think is going to win this weekend's matches. You can check it out on YouTube and where you get your podcasts, or you can comment on our Facebook and Instagram pages. We'll take a break, and when we do come back, we're going to have the South Fremantle vice-captain of the WAFLW, Charlie Vandenburg. She'll join us to talk about the side's massive clash. It's do or die against Claremont on Sunday, and what a game that one promises to be. We'll chat with Charlie after the break here on Around the Waffle. It's all thanks to Grant's Car Stereo, District Promotions, Sullivan Logistics, and Front Row Screen Sport after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the Waffle.
Valentine Roads and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick-to-kick at every break. The Waffle is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the Waffle on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
Back with us here on Around the Waffle, Paul Persic riding solo and bringing you all the action that is to come in the Waffle and WAFLW. It's on YouTube and where you get your podcast. Well, it's a big round 18 in the WAFLW competition. 3 matches that had huge ramifications on the final 4. It's all on the line for Perth, East Fremantle, and South Fremantle in their efforts to fight it out for those final 2 spots in the 4. And South Fremantle are one of those sides. They are currently in 3rd place, but they're only 2 points ahead of their arch rivals and a game ahead of Perth. So all is possible for that final fling for the four. And South Fremantle, well, they're going to have a big boost this weekend with the return of their vice-captain, who got suspended back in round 13, but she's available to play and she's gearing up for that big game against reigning premiers Claremont on Sunday. Charlie Vandenburg is her name, and she's good enough to join me here on Around the Waffle. Hello, Charlie.
Hello, how are we?
Going very well. Great to have you on the show. It's been quite a time since you've last played, round 13 against Perth. But what's the feeling like from within? Are you excited to gear up in your first game back in 5 weeks and a game so important for your side's fortunes?
Yeah, like you said, it's been a long 5 weeks for me on the sideline with the bye in there, sort of pushing that one out. But I think the overarching feeling is definitely excitement to get back out there with the team after what the last few weeks have been. 3 really impressive wins, putting us in some good form for the back half of the season. I'm just super proud and stoked to be back out there soon.
And they've had a lot of new great signings over the last few weeks, South Fremantle. In particular, Kiana Lee. What have you made of her work in the forward line since she came back? Since she came to South Fremantle and has started kicking all those goals?
Yeah, I know she's been definitely an attribute to our team. You look at the stat sheet and go, who is this new girl kicking 6 on debut? I can't remember what she kicked in her second, and then 4 across the weekend just gone. So it's been fantastic to have her, not just on game day, but the way that she's just immersed herself in our culture over the training weeks. It's like she's been there since the start of the year, really brought in great connection and pride to be a part of South Fremantle Footy Club, only being here sort of a month or so.
You're going into this game with 4 wins on the trot, and it's good to go into, a crunch finals game in winning form. What has the coach, Pierre Folletti, spoken to you about, a game like this, going into the form that your side is in with 4 wins in a row as far as mindset and attitude approaching a side like the reigning premiers?
Look, I think that a lot of it just comes back to the belief and trust in our systems. Like the last 4 weeks, it's worked. We've had a couple of big wins and a couple of close wins. That means that our system works and we just back it sort of going into whatever the opposition might offer us. As you said, Claremont are the reigning premiers, but they were they went down to Subi by 1 point the week before we played Subi, so they're definitely not untouchable. And I think that everyone knows that they're a handball kind of chain game, and we just sort of adjust our play on how we might counteract that. But definitely the belief and trust that we've got in our system and each other from what the last sort of month of footy has given us.
You've talked about Claremont being quite a trigger-happy side when it comes to their handball game. Would a way to combat that be, just to try and keep them out of that loop as far as their handball is concerned and really out-tackle a side like Claremont? Would that be the number one key?
Yeah, there's a few different ways that we might sort of go around it. That's probably more of the coaches are far across that than I might be. But I know that we've got different role players that might help sort of balance that out. Or as Subi did the week before, we just sort of look at how they helped combat the handball and how they then managed to stay in the game and then get the game on their terms, bringing them that 1 point win.
Now, of course, Claremont did beat you last time out in late April by 23 points, which is, one of your more heavier defeats as far as the season has been concerned. But a side like Claremont, they really rely on a lot of their experienced players. Your side has got some great experience in that, the likes of Tua Carena, Pommer's back, Gilchrist and Ash Gomes, the former Shark, who, of course, has made her way to the crosstown rivals this season. What do you make of, those experienced players that you've had the privilege of playing alongside in this 2026 season, because they've been out all guns blazing?
Yeah, they have. They really sort of set the standard for our team in game and in training, and I think that we've got a great balance across all lines, where in past we've probably had our leaders, whether it be front, back or middle of the ground, but we've got the experience and people, like you said, Ash Gomes, hopefully Vecchio comes back in this week praying, that just bring that experience, that knowledge, and even if it's not finals experience, it's just pressure experience and knowing how to handle your teammates and handle situations and then settle the group until the job's done, I guess.
Now, I know players at this time of the year don't like to look too far ahead, but I'll put you on the hot seat here, and the hot seat, the temperature is at 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Should you go out of that game a winning side, who would you prefer to take on in that first semi-final? East Fremantle in a nice People's Derby final, or the resurgent Perth, who have been on huge leaps and bounds as far as their improvement has gone in their second season of competition?
Yeah, like you said, their second year in the comp for Perth. If they have a finals berth, that's huge for their team and their club, and that's a pat on the back to them. But I do think I couldn't pass up on a derby final, whether it be here or away. There's that little bit of extra excitement. A rivalry, obviously, with our friends that have come from East Freo, now a few being drafted, but that's always a game that everyone looks forward to on the calendar. So maybe adding the finals aspect in there, though, it probably steps it up that little bit more.
You heard it here. The East Fremantle vice-captain, the South Fremantle vice-captain, rather, wants a People's Derby first week of the finals. It is going to be huge if that eventuates. Charlie, we really appreciate your time here on Around the WAFL. Good luck on Sunday. Massive game, this one, with the highest of stakes possible.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Superb stuff there from Charlie Vandenburg, the vice-captain of South Fremantle, joining us here on Around the WAFL. And let's take a look at the action now. Last round, round 18. Let's look at the ladder first off. There you see it. First and second, they're signed, sealed and delivered. Third, fourth and fifth are the key positions we're talking about. South Fremantle third, East Fremantle fourth, Perth in fifth. And let's have a look at the permutations for each side, the simple part of the permutations. South Fremantle, should they win against Claremont, regardless of what happens, they will lock in third place. If they lose, they would have to hope that both East Fremantle and Perth lose their games. If one of them lose their games, one of them win their game and one lose, they're fine. But if both win and they lose, then there's the possibility that they could miss out on a spot in the four. But their percentage is rather very good compared to the likes of their crosstown rivals and Perth. For East Fremantle, should they stay in fourth place, they've got to win, and they would hope Perth lose to Swan Districts on the same day as well. But if they lose and Perth win, then East Fremantle will be out of the four. Perth, simple goal. Tough task against Swan Districts. They have to win and hope that East Fremantle loses their game to West Perth to get into fourth place. But they can get up to third if they win and South Fremantle lose, because Perth have a superior percentage compared to South Fremantle, and they would host a final against South Fremantle at Mineral Resources Park next week. So those are the ramifications for the three teams that are contending for a spot in the four. Only one of them is going to be the unlucky ones to miss out in what's been a very exciting finals race. Now to the games. All four of them on Sunday, and by gee, it's a big day in the WAFLW competition. All four starting on the same day at the same time, and there's going to be a lot of intrigue around it. Revo Fitness Stadium is the first port of call. Claremont and South Fremantle at 12:10 on the WAFL official YouTube channel. This one is shaping up to be a real cracker. Both sides have been back and forth as far as results are concerned. Claremont, however, have won the last four out of their last five. And the only loss that they had to South Fremantle in that last five was a big upset down at Fremantle Oval. And my colleague Ethan Roth went with the wrong tip and lost his unbeaten claim for Claremont. So there you go. Shout out to you, Rothy, but take that. Ha-ha. We'll see you Monday. But this is a massive game. As we illustrated with that chat by Charlie Vandenburg, the vice-captain, who's going to be coming back after a 5-game suspension, what will be the key for South Fremantle is the way they can take Claremont's handball game out of the contest. Claremont, they love to keep that possession alive through their handball game. They've got Ortlip, Husband, Harkin, who's been exceptional in the last few weeks. Of course, Jamie Harkin had a great opportunity along with Ruby Sargent-Wilson to play in the Eagles squad for the preseason game against Collingwood. And with the bye they had last week, they'll be energised and ready to go. What's also going to be important is how Claremont's forward lines can still function without Ortlip, who's out for the remainder of the season, as we know. But Claremont, they've still got enough class to get it done. But I just feel that South Fremantle have got a little more motivation. The other question is, and Ethan Roth put this to me off the air, how many players will Claremont and South Fremantle rest in the event of both sides being in the four? If I was Claremont and South Fremantle, I would not take that chance at all. No way. If I'm Jack Schwartz or Pierre Folletti, which I'm clearly not, but if I was in their shoes, I would not be taking that risk, because you've got finals the very next week. There's none of this pre-finals bye crap. You've got to have your best side out there. Yes, there is the risk of injury and your key players possibly missing the finals if that eventuates. But you can't take that chance. You've got to get straight into it the next week. But I feel with South Fremantle, with Vandenburg coming back and possibly Lauren Vecchio coming back. Now, if she comes back, that is a real bonus. She's one of the key leaders of the Bulldogs, life member, current playing life member. And with Kiana Lee on fire in the last 3 games, that could be enough for South Fremantle to win. I'm going with the Bulldogs in this one to sew up third place and host that first semi-final. I just feel they've just got a little bit more motivation. Claremont know that they've locked in second and they deserve to be in the top 2. But are they going to go into this game with a different approach? I would suggest so. I'm going to go South Fremantle on this one because they've got a little bit more to play for, and they certainly want to host that final. It is going to be massive, make no mistake about that. So is this game, and this is the biggest chance Perth will have this season. They take on the league leaders, Swan Districts, who have only lost twice. This game's at Steel Blue Oval at 12:10 on the official WAFL YouTube channel, and what a battle this is going to be. If Swan Districts win, Perth are out. If Perth win and East Fremantle lose, then Perth are going to be in the 4 in their second year of competition. Make no mistake about it, it is going to be tough. Tough and physical in very unpredictable conditions. The rain could be a bit of a factor as well. There's a forecast of light rain on Sunday. But Perth are going to be motivated under Steph Walding. They're going to go into this game like it is a sudden death final. But Swan Districts, they have got the cattle to produce some good four-quarter football. The battle I'm really looking forward to seeing is the battle in the ruck between Quaife and Warne. Warne has her work cut out against Lauren Quaife, who along with Matilda Husband is the premier ruck in the competition. Her clear tap-out work is very good. Her follow-up work is getting better. I can say the same with Molly Warne as well, who's been getting over 20 to 25 hit-outs in recent games and has really worked hard to keep her spot in that first Premier Ruck division for the Perth Football Club. But at Steel Blue Oval, gee, Swans are hard to beat. They are hard to beat over there. They've only lost once at home this year, and that was to the reigning premiers. But when they play at Steel Blue Oval, there's always something about it. When you got Jamie Henry firing, Lauren Quaife, Summer Yaron, who broke from her shell last weekend in that forward line, kicked a couple of vital goals in their very big win over Peel Thunder. You also have Naomi West, Baker, Bella Edgley, the key defender, who's back in form after recovering from a shoulder injury in recent weeks. You just feel that Swans have got a little bit more. Although Perth are going to have great motivation, I'm sorry to say to the Demons fans, Swans will win and will end Perth's season. I just feel Swans, they're on top of the ladder. I feel that they may rest one or two players to get them set for the finals, but if I was Jason Burton, I wouldn't take that chance either. I want to show to the Demons and the rest of the competition that you're not prepared to take that risk. You are not prepared to take that risk of resting players, so you look bad this week. You want the side to look consistent. That's what I do, and Swan Districts will win quite easily. Now, next game at 12:10, this is the only real dead rubber in this round, and that's heartbreaking to say because Subiaco are up against East Perth. East Perth got a lot of good young talent who are just slowly improving, but not quickly enough as far as their game plan is concerned, and they've only had the 2 wins as a result. They take on Subiaco in a battle of the co-tenants at Sullivan Logistics Stadium at 12:10 on the official WAFL YouTube channel. While might seem inconsequential as far as the team's season is concerned, Subiaco will have something to prove against the young East Perth side. And the big three in Steen, Petrevsky, and also Shepherd, they've really shouldered the workload without much support. And the forward line has not been the same since Olivia Walmarans got picked up by Richmond in the AFLW draft. And the real big problem for that, as far as they're concerned, is that has really thrown a real big disruption into their game plan. And that's pretty unfortunate because Subiaco, they are one hell of a side. Subi are a great side when looking at their talent that they have got. And also up forward, Kay Peters as well, who's been positioned in some weeks as that number 1 forward, but it hasn't really worked. And they haven't been able to kick big enough scores to get them over the line. We saw that against South Fremantle last week. But for East Perth, just play with pride. Just play with raw pride and passion, knowing that this is the last game of the season and knowing that there could be some changes on that playlist for next year. They need to play like they've got nothing to lose and just play with that little extra pride and raw passion to show that they can get the job done. But I'm going to go with Subiaco. They want to end their year on a high. Baker Denneman wants to end the year on a high. It largely has been a disappointing year for Subiaco, and I'll say that the Lions will get the job done quite handsomely. The big three can fire. They just need support in that midfield and up forward. Then the final game of the season. It's at the Good Grocer Park, East Fremantle, taking on West Perth. That's at 12:10 on the official WAFL YouTube channel, and it's been really interesting to see the fortunes of both these sides. East Fremantle have got a lot of young kids, but they're defying expectations, and they're currently in the 4. And if they beat West Perth, they will keep their spot in the 4 and will play against South Fremantle in the elimination final, the minor semi-final, next week. But West Perth, they want to try and cause a red herring. The way they performed last week was just magnificent. That was the West Perth that many fans had been dying to see. Dominance in the midfield, getting the ball out of the centre, first to the ball in the clearances, and Clint Degebrot, the WAFLW coach, will certainly want to see his side end the year on a high. And it's been a largely disappointing year because they're not looking like a consistent side, unfortunately. Even though they've got some experience back in the form of Kat Bennett, who kicked a couple of goals, she's primarily been situated in that forward 50. And if she's to play a role in that forward 50, she could be matched up on Brooke Repacholi. Then if Repacholi's matching up on her, I feel Repacholi could have that sustained 1v1 advantage because she's very strong in that area, takes some very good marks. But West Perth, keep in mind, did towel up East Fremantle a little earlier in the season in round 10, but that was only because the ground is very wide at HIF Health Insurance Oval, and West Perth play those wide grounds very well. Goodgrosser Park isn't as wide, and so that's going to be a major challenge for West Perth, how they navigate the lack of space that the Goodgrosser Park's wings present. In South Fremantle, they love to play that, fast-paced 1v1 through the corridor, and they've got some very good midfielders in the form of Flynn, who can drift up forward and kick some goals as well and dominate the contest. That's why I've gone with East Fremantle to keep their spot in the 4 because they know what to play for. They're a more consistent side at home, and their midfield presence is very, very good. So I'm going with East Fremantle to beat West Perth quite handsomely in the end and formally lock in a spot in the 4. Big weekend of WAFLW. You can see it all on the WAFL YouTube channel. We'll take a break, and when we do come back, debut of Around the WAFL Flashback, taking you back to 1983.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine rides and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick-to-kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
With you here on Around the WAFL as we get set for another big weekend of football. Round 17 in the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season and round 18, the last round of the ATCO WAFLW season. Okay, the debut of our new recurring segment on Around the WAFL. Around the WAFL Flashback takes you back in time to some memorable moments and games across the history of this marvellous competition. Our first stop on the Around the WAFL Flashback train takes us to 1983, the last round. And it's at the old East Fremantle Oval. It looked completely different back then to the way it is today. It is East Fremantle and East Perth. And East Perth, they wanted to put East Fremantle out of the race for the top 4. East Fremantle, who had been renamed the Sharks from Old East after 1982, had a bit of an up-and-down season under captain coach Ron Alexander. Now, he would be out injured for this game, as well as fellow star Rod Lester-Smith. But what they turned on at East Fremantle Oval really showed that they really arrived as a football side and were ready to contend for another premiership after some great success in the late 70s, but had been in the doldrums in 1980, 81 and 1982 where they finished no higher than 6th. East Perth, of course, they had their struggles during the year, but they really gave the fight to East Fremantle. Let's take you back now to some highlights. This footage courtesy of Channel 7, round 21, 1983, East Fremantle and East Perth.
running, coming up towards the right centre wing. Thorne in front. Shane Ellis spoilt well. This is Dawson. Still Dawson. Dawson will get a kick. Dawson to Ironmonger. Big fella in towards Edwards. He's not giving enough Edwards at the moment. Dean Turner. Brennan read it superbly. And look at the pass to Wilson. Just strolls around Ironmonger. Wilson's off. There's nobody within 30 metres of him. Gave it out to Harding. Harding coming across to Taylor. Oh, Mangrove's so goal.
A long way out, he won't make it. But the big fellas in the goal square.
A long kick. Edwards got the sit. Thumped away well. Spencer left foot. Oh, what a footballer.
Oh, beautiful.
What a brilliant effort. Kick it's on the ground. And Needle from 30 metres.
Looks good.
East Fremantle. Magro to Thorne. He'll have to hurry. High kicks. They haven't got Johnson from behind. Kick it, reading it well. Oh, look at Taylor all by himself again. 45 metres. Long kick. Brilliant play, Kevin Taylor. Well, now went for Daru. Too far for him. Kick it! In between two of them. That's symptomatic of the way he's put, I guess. Dean Turner into half forward to Thorne. Peter Thorne is going to kick from 25, 30 metres out from goal.
Don't put your bottom dollar on it. The way he kicks it high, he'd be lucky to clear the man on the mark.
5 goals East Fremantle have kicked for the quarter, and East Perth have just added their first.
Yes,
easily as you like. Still Mario Turco, round Daru to Jones. Jones inside 50 metres, he'll have a dip. Good kick from Jones. Oh, what a passage of play.
Well, there you go. A rather handsome win to East Fremantle that day over the Royals at East Fremantle Oval, and that put them in the top 4 for the first time for the entire year. So what a time to enter the 4, and they got the job done in great style. And having a look at those players from yesteryear, especially some sensational stars in that game. Of course, Kevin Taylor, a great forward in that game. Ironically, he got reported for striking in that game and missed that first semi-final. So there was our first stop around the WAFL Flashback, taking you to 1983. A sensational day of football that was at East Fremantle Oval. That does it for this week's preview show here on Around the WAFL. Thanks so much for your company, and a huge thanks to our partners, Grant's Car Stereo, Front Row Screen Sports, Sullivan Logistics, and District Promotions. Rothy will be back with me on Monday night to recap all the action and also look ahead to the WAFLW finals as the road to Fremantle Oval, August 23, gets ever closer. Have a wonderful weekend of the footy. We'll see you Monday for our recap program.